The Super Bowl MVP. It's the award that takes a star player and just launches them into legendary status. But behind all that confetti and that shiny trophy, there's a whole story. A story full of shocking stats, some real controversy, and these fascinating exceptions. So what does it really take to be named the most valuable player on football's biggest stage? Let's break it all down.
Okay, when you picture a Super Bowl MVP, what do you see? Come on, be honest. I'm betting it's the quarterback, right? The hero, cool as a cucumber in the pocket, leading that final game-winning drive while the confetti is just pouring down. It's the face of the franchise, hoisting that trophy high for everyone to see.
Yeah, you're thinking of the absolute legends, right? The Joe Montanas, the Tom Bradys of the world. It's an image that's basically burned into our collective sports memory. I mean, the quarterback is the leader, the general on the field. It just makes sense they'd be the MVP. But that's not the whole story, not even close.
So what if I told you a player won this coveted award after having a statistically, well, let's just say a bad game? I know, it sounds impossible, but it's totally true. And that one single baffling fact opens the door to a whole history of MVP awards that are just filled with surprises, controversy, and some really fascinating exceptions to the rule.
Okay, but before we dive into all the weird exceptions, we have to acknowledge a fundamental truth here. That classic image of the quarterback MVP, yeah, it exists for a very, very good reason. They absolutely positively dominate this award. And the numbers? They're just staggering. I mean, just look at the sheer scale of this dominance. At 57%, quarterbacks have won the Super Bowl MVP more often than every single other position combined. Seriously, take all the wide receivers, all the running backs, every single defensive player who's ever won, add them all up, and they still don't get to the QB's total. It is, without a doubt, the MVP position. Let's put that into perspective with just a raw number. 34. 34 times. That's how often the Pete Result Trophy has gone to a quarterback. This isn't just some trend. It's practically a dynasty. So yeah, if you're a betting person, the safe money is always on the winning QB. But hey, safe bets don't usually make for the best stories, do they?
Which brings us to the rebels, the party crashers. The players who, through sheer force of will or just a performance for the ages, managed to break through that quarterback blockade and snatch the award for themselves. So looking at the non-quarterback winners, you can see it's a pretty tough club to get into. Wide receivers and running backs have had the most success, which, makes sense. They're the ones scoring the touchdowns. But what's really fascinating to me are the defensive players who were so dominant, so disruptive, they simply could not be ignored. And then there's the rarest of them all.
All right, let's talk about the ultimate outlier, Super Bowl 31. Green Bay's Desmond Howard, he is the first, and to this day, the only special teams player to ever be named Super Bowl MVP. He didn't catch a single pass, but his 99-yard kickoff return for a touchdown and a Super Bowl record 244 total return yards were so electrifying, so completely game-changing that the voters really had no choice. He didn't just give his team a spark, he was a full-on lightning storm.
Okay, so let's shift gears from the unique to the totally undisputed. These are the performances that aren't just great, they're legendary. We're talking about the ones where everybody watching knew, without a shadow of a doubt, who the MVP was long before that final whistle blew. So according to Yardbarker's ranking of every single MVP performance in history, there is a clear number one. The single greatest, most dominant MVP performance the Super Bowl has ever seen. Steve Young, Super Bowl 29. Wow. This wasn't just a win, it was a coronation. Finally out of Joe Montana's shadow, Young put on an absolute clinic. He threw a Super Bowl record 6 touchdown passes. And if that wasn't enough for you, he was also the game's leading rusher. Think about that. He was the top passer and the top runner. It's a feat that has never been matched, and it perfectly encapsulates what a truly valuable player is. This timeline right here, it just shows the power of a single quarter to define a legacy. So, Doug Williams, the first African-American quarterback to start a Super Bowl, his team is down 10-0. And then, he unleashes arguably the greatest quarter in football history. 4 touchdowns, 35 unanswered points. In just 15 minutes of game time, he completely rewrote the script and cemented his place in history. Just incredible.
Okay, we've seen the greatest of the great. Now it's time to look at the other side of the coin. The MVPs that kind of make you scratch your head. The performances that were bizarre, questionable, and in one case ranked as the absolute worst of all time.
Hey, remember that question I asked at the very beginning about winning MVP while throwing more interceptions than touchdowns? Well, let's meet the player who holds that dubious honor, ranked dead last out of all 58 MVP performances.
And yep, this actually happened. In Super Bowl 14, the legendary Terry Bradshaw threw 3 interceptions and only 2 touchdowns. His team won, so he got the trophy. Maybe it was his reputation, or maybe there just wasn't another clear candidate. But his performance remains a massive statistical anomaly, and it's proof that the MVP isn't always about a perfect stat line.
Now for one of the most unique situations in MVP history, Super Bowl 12. The Dallas defense, the Doomsday defense, was so suffocating. They forced a staggering 8 turnovers that the voters were just stumped. They couldn't single out just one guy. So for the first and only time, they named co-MVPs, Harvey Martin and Randy White. You know, it was a fitting team award for a truly dominant, legendary unit.
And now for the ultimate anomaly, Chuck Howley. This guy's the answer to one of sports' greatest trivia questions. In Super Bowl V, his Dallas Cowboys lost. They lost the game, but his individual performance, with 2 interceptions and a forced fumble, was so utterly dominant that he was named MVP anyway. He is still the only player from a losing team to ever win the award, a true testament to individual greatness even when the team falls short.
You know, Chuck Howley's win opens up this fascinating thought experiment. He's the only one to officially win from a losing team. But was he the only one who really deserved it? Let's take a look at some other legendary performances that were ultimately just overshadowed by the final score.
Let's wind the clock to Super Bowl 39. The Patriots beat the Eagles, and receiver Deion Branch won MVP for a great performance. But was he truly the most valuable player on that field that day?
Okay, so here's the context. Deion Branch had a fantastic game, no doubt about it. 11 catches for 133 yards. Great day. But on the losing side, Terrell Owens had 9 catches for 122 yards, all while playing on a broken leg just weeks after surgery. He completely defied doctors to play and was nearly unstoppable. It really forces you to ask, what does valuable actually mean?
And this isn't just a one-off case either. Think about Jalen Hurts accounting for 4 touchdowns, or Tom Brady throwing for a Super Bowl record 505 yards in a loss. Or how about Coney Ealy, a defensive end who single-handedly wrecked the Broncos' offense with 3 sacks, an interception, and a forced fumble. All of them legendary performances, but none of them took home the trophy.
So it all kind of leads to one big conclusion, doesn't it? We call it the Most Valuable Player Award, but history seems to show it's almost always given to the best player on the winning team. After looking at the legends, the outliers, and the unsung heroes, it leaves a big question for the next time you're watching the Super Bowl. Are we really rewarding the most valuable player, or are we just rewarding the most visible victor?